From NewsNation headquarters, this is NewsNation Prime.
Now her party wants more power, and the way they're going to do it is that she wants to give all those illegal aliens the right to vote.
Now the prospect of so-called illegal non-citizen voting in this year's elections has come to the forefront of the national conversation. Some Republicans now making that very claim, trying to push new laws to ensure that it doesn't happen. But is what they're warning of, that undocumented migrants will cast votes in our presidential election this year, true? NewsNation correspondent Jorge Ventura has been fact-checking these claims. So Jorge, fact or fiction here, how real is the threat that non-U.S. citizens may vote in this year's presidential election?
Yeah, Natasha, we did a deep dive into these GOP claims just to see if this a widespread issue across the country. Here's what we found. Data doesn't support the GOP claim that non-citizens will vote in this year's upcoming presidential election, or an even increased number of illegal voters. Voting in federal elections by non-U.S. citizens is illegal in every state. Recent reviews and audits show no significant uptick in non-citizen voting attempts.
For more, we are bringing in our panel tonight. Republican strategist Matt Klink and Dr. Lauren Wright, NewsNation political contributor and political scientist at Princeton. Welcome, both of you. And Matt, I want to start with you tonight. We just heard Jorge's reporting. There is no real evidence that non-citizen voting is a widespread problem. In your opinion, is the GOP better off focusing on other issues, real issues, the economy, inflation, that are big with voters?
Well, I think they are leading with the economy. I think you heard both Donald Trump and J.D. Vance hit that point. I will add, though, that Glenn Youngkin in Virginia just cleansed the voter rolls and removed 80,000 dead people and 6,000 illegal immigrants from the voting records in Virginia. So the fact that they aren't voting, it's very, as you said, it's very, very difficult to track. But many states don't require an ID to vote, which I think we should. Look, it took an ID to get into the Democratic National Convention, but you don't have to have an ID to vote. But again, Natasha, that's not an issue that's going to win in November for the Republicans. They need to focus on the economy. They need to focus on the fact that inflation under the Biden-Harris administration is at 19.7% over a 3.5-year history, and that it costs $125 for a $100 bag of groceries.
Yeah, Dr. Wright, let's turn to you, because we are tracking a lawsuit in North Carolina on this topic. Why are Republicans so heavily focused on this issue, do you think?
Well, they are leading on immigration in general. So if they could just shift the rhetoric a little bit to an issue they're actually very dominant on, that might be better. But there are some common sense questions here that are very fair to ask that I think Republicans can raise without getting into these conspiracy theories about dead people voting and changing electoral outcomes and all these things. You know, Donald Trump just double down on his 2020 election lies a couple of days ago. So he continues to do that. But look, a common sense question for Democrats should be, do you think non-citizens deserve to vote? I mean, obviously, Democrats in those states Jorge just mentioned, California, states like Vermont, Maryland, these are not right-leaning states, have pushed for this sort of legislation in local elections. So that would be a reasonable question. Along with, do you think people should need ID to vote? I mean, I think Democrats can get overconfident in some of their positions that the majority of the electorate are not in line with.
Okay, Matt, I do want to get your take on this in particular. There's a recent poll finding voter satisfaction surging among Democrats in the wake of VP Harris taking the reins. I think we understand why there is enthusiasm on that side, but also there is an uptick in satisfaction, albeit a smaller one, among Republican voters right now. Matt, in this moment when Harris's polling just keeps surging, why are Republicans, why is their satisfaction going up right now?
Look, both parties ran great conventions. I think that the challenge the Republicans have is that they ran a convention when Joe Biden was still the nominee. All this being said, though, if you look at where Hillary Clinton was in 2016, where Joe Biden was in 2020, and where Kamala Harris is now at this particular time, Kamala Harris's lead is radically smaller than the other two. And we know that Donald Trump will poll lower than his actual number is, and he will get a higher total on Election Day. So, I mean, look, this election is essentially tied. Donald Trump is up 0.1 in the swing states. Kamala Harris is up 2% nationally. This election is going to all boil down to whose voters turned out on election day. The swing that people talk about, there aren't that many of them. It's who can turn their people out to vote. And that's why this enthusiasm for both parties is so absolutely critical.
And Dr. Wright, I want to bring you in here with this last question. With your background as a political scientist, do you feel that the lead, the 7% lead is the latest poll that Harris has over Trump nationally, is false or overblown? Do you suspect that it is actually a smaller lead, or that this is more neck and neck, it is anyone's race?
No, I think it's a snapshot in time. And Harris has not faced tough questions from the press. She does not excel in those environments. And she's never been on a debate stage with Trump. And while I have no doubt she'll do a better job than Biden, I think it's very unpredictable how the race will shape up. I do think the polls will tighten, but I think Trump needs to stay on the issues and off of the personal attacks on Harris.
Yeah, I think 70 some odd days left. In some ways, it is a total sprint. It is such a short amount of time. And also, those are a lot of days and a lot can change. Dr. Lauren Wright, Matt Klink, a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Natasha.